Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Locke, and this is my Module 14 for EDL 851, the case study. So if we look at the summary of the case, teacher evaluations are due and trying to get all of that paperwork wrapped up. From the observation seen, and there's a very capable staff, but there is one teacher who's not performing well. Her name is Miss Stevens. What was observed in Miss Stevens' performance was that students do not appear engaged or involved in her classes. Um, there is no student motivation, and she seems to have trouble controlling the students because of that. And students do not show any respect for her. A post observation conference was conducted. Ms. Stevens was very irritable. She was hostile to any suggestions for improvement. It was attempted to suggest that she involve her students more, which resulted in her being very defensive. Because no progress was being made with the conference, it was ended, and the next day came about. The principal, myself, decided to go for another observation to see if maybe things had changed in her classroom. However, there was no improvement seen. There was nothing positive that could be said about by the end of the class. The decision was made to not renew her contract, and in meeting with Miss Stevens again before it was sent to the superintendent, the evaluation form was given to Miss Stevens for her to read. However, when she came into the meeting, she started off the meeting very hostile. And so when she was looking at the rating sheet, by the time she was done, she threw it back on the principal's desk, claimed that everything on the evaluation was inaccurate. It was unfair. She was never given any professional development to teach her, to help her to figure out how to engage and involve her students more in her classrooms. And she also claims that she will not go down without a fight. So needless to say, that post-observation conference did not end well. Legal and ethical issues with this case. The first legal issue, obviously, is Ms. Stevens is threatening a legal action, saying you're not going to go down without a fight, especially when you're about to lose your job because your contract isn't going to be renewed. Typically, teachers are going to sue the principal or sue the school district. So the legal thing of not renewing someone's contract and then not getting tenure. You also, when I think about ethical issues, the first thing that popped in my head was that this teacher is teaching these students, but the students are not engaged. So how can they be getting a high quality education? And then, was there an opportunity for professional development about involving students more? Is there something that the principal should have done to intervene maybe sooner? Somewhere along the lines that maybe it wouldn't have come to this. So a synthesis of what happened in one sentence. Teacher evaluations are being conducted, and one teacher, Mrs. Stevens, received a poor rating that is resulting in her contract not being renewed. That resulted in a negative reaction from Ms. Stevens with claims that there was no support from administration. The people involved in this, first we have Miss Stevens, obviously. She's very knowledgeable about her content area, which is very good, but she does not engage her students well in class. Students do not respect her. She does not have control of her classroom. When meeting with the principal, she was very hostile and uncooperative when discussing her poor performance. The principal is the individual conducting the evaluations, has made attempts to help Mrs. Stevens improve, but with what has happened, it's recommended that to not renew her contract. And then finally, another group that would be brought into this is going to be the superintendent and the school board. The principal is making the recommendation to not renew her contract, and so the superintendent and school board have to decide to take that recommendation, and with the threat of a potential legal battle, they would have to be involved in that as well. The place where all of this happened, the school in Miss Stevens' classroom. That was where the observations have been conducted. You have the principal's office where the post-observation conference was conducted. The program that's involved in this case is teacher evaluations, and then some unknowns for section 4. Are there any specifics in the policies that are set down by the school when it comes to handling poor performing teachers? I wonder about the students' performance in Ms. Stevens' classroom, because typically if a student is not involved or engaged in a class, typically that's going to reflect in their grade. Typically it's going to be a little bit lower than average for a student. Is it possible that she maybe needs to be removed now because she could take her hostility to a new level? Would buying out her contract be an option? And then, should she be fired now? Can she finish her contract? That kind of stuff. Could the conflict situation or decision be damaging to stakeholders of the community? It's going to be damaging to the stakeholders if it ends up in a legal battle. It's going to cause strain on the school board. It's going to cause strain on the principal. And then any legal situation or any removal of teachers does disrupt the learning environment for a period of time. And so that's definitely one scenario that can happen. The individuals involved, obviously you have Miss Stevens. She has the stake in the outcome of, is she employed still or not? Does she get her contract renewed or not? The principal has the important stake in it, because if she's poorly performing and she ends up tenure, then ways to improve her teaching may prove to be difficult to conduct. The students, they have a stake in this outcome. They're either going to continue to have a teacher who does not involve them, or they could get a new teacher who does involve them and increase their learning. And then we have the superintendent and school board. Again, with the legal action, she could take legal action against the superintendent and school board, because the teacher is making the recommendation to not renew. The principal is making the recommendation not to renew the teacher's contract. It's the superintendent and the school board who have to decide to take that recommendation or not. Have all of the stakeholders been consulted? Yes, the superintendent for sure is a big one that needs to know about her performance and the legal threat, and why the principal, myself, decided to make the suggestion that they not renew the contract. Can I learn more about the situation? Are there specifics in the negotiated agreement that need to be taken into consideration? The teacher's contract, maybe there's something there that could help. And then district policy when it comes to staff, maybe there's something in there that can help. I want to know, are there other options? I want to explore all options when it comes to handling poor performance by teachers. And then, do I know enough to make a decision? I believe there's enough to move forward. And there will be learning steps, and it depends on essentially Miss Stevens' reactions to this. The first option would be taking no action, not moving forward with the recommendation. That would result in Miss Stevens still keeping her job. The principal would essentially placate Miss Stevens. She'll probably still be upset, but she will still be employed. Students in the class will continue as usual, no respect, no classroom management, and very little learning, very little engagement. Second option, proceed with that evaluation, that observation, and the recommendation of not renewing her contract. I would consult with the superintendent first, lay down what I saw, what I've observed, what happened in the post-observation conferences. That really helps set in this decision. Once that has been done, and basically consulting with the superintendent to explain, this is why I'm saying this teacher's contract does not deserve to be renewed. After that, I would go to the school legal team, the school lawyer, just because the threat at the end where she isn't going to go down without a fight, to me screams, I'm going to sue you. And so you need to consult with the lawyers, because that could happen. There are lots of teachers out there who end up suing their school districts. I would also begin to collect documentation, the observation sheets. I would document how her behavior was with those post-observation conferences. That is one of the big things. I can see getting a poor evaluation, but if in a post-observation conference that teacher is willing to work and willing to improve, I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. In this case, there's no proof that she's even willing to improve. So after the documentation, I would let Ms. Stevens complete the school year, and then just her contract for the next school year wouldn't be renewed. Immediate strategies or other options I could see. It might possibly need to happen that you buy her out of her contract if Ms. Stevens is so hostile. Maybe she'll start refusing to do her job, to refusing to teach. Maybe you've got to remove her from the school now. Those are things I could potentially see. Evaluation of my options, pros and cons. Taking no action, the first one, you're able to keep the peace with Ms. Stevens and pretty much placate her. You can avoid your legal battles. You're not taking that risk. However, the cons, the students aren't engaged in education. Mrs. Stevens is going to end up getting tenure, and then if she does not improve, your student learning is not going to improve. You're not going to have school improvement. The second option, proceeding with the action of, here's my recommendation. She shouldn't get her contract removed. Ms. Stevens would be removed from the school. Stakeholders all have been consulted. Student learning can increase because an ineffective teacher would be removed. Cons, you're running the risk of the legal battle. With the statement at the end, it screams, I will sue you to me. And then a disrupted school environment. Anytime a teacher is removed, not renewed, is hostile towards the principal, it disrupts the school environment. The intermediate strategies, buying her out of her contract or firing her, both would result in the removal of an effective teacher. However, if it's very abrupt and it's pretty much worst case scenario, it's the last thing that you want to have to do. Removing them at semester even just causes this ripple through the school that, speaking from personal experience, it's not the best option. But if it's your worst case scenario, you got to do what you got to do. My choice would be to proceed with giving the recommendation to the superintendent, having him state that I don't want the contract renewed, and hopefully the school board takes that into account. How can the plan be implemented with the greatest care? You have to be mindful. You have to be compassionate. Even though, as the principal, I'm essentially saying you're fired at the end of the school year, you have to have some compassion for her. She is losing her job in her position. She may be ineffective and she may deserve it, but she's still losing her job. Have all stakeholders in this case been consulted? Yes. The big stakeholders that I see, the principal, Ms. Stevens, the superintendent of schools, and the school board. And then have I identified all creative options? Yes, I believe I have. The best option would be to let her finish the year, just not have her contract renewed, and move on. The worst case scenario I already talked about, having to immediately remove her or remove her at semester, depending on what time of year it is. That is the end of my case study. I hope you enjoyed watching, and thank you for watching.